Mike, I'm just still seeing internal staff. Are you seeing the number of attendees?
Donna, it is going up, yes.
Is it? Okay. I must just, because I'm sharing my screen, so I kind of have a limited view.
Yeah, it's up to 22 now.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to wait just a little bit. I won't keep you too long before we start the meeting, but just to give people a little bit longer to join on the meeting. Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight on the Zoom call. My name is Donna Friedman and I'm the Watershed Team Leader for the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. I will be hosting this meeting tonight along with Derek Bogle, who is our project manager for this project. Thanks for waving, Derek. Today we'll be talking about the Upper Ridgewood Basin Redesign Project, which is being spearheaded by the Sewer District and in collaboration with the City of Parma. So with that, I will turn it over to Mayor DeGeeter to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you to all of the residents joining here tonight to learn more about this project. One of our big issues confronting the city is trying to control the stopping of flooded basements. Fortunately, this year we didn't have, while we had a lot of rain, we didn't have a major storm component come through the city, but we are seeing through the years an increase of these storm events that has caused problems. This area where Ridgewood Lakes is around City Hall is a major hotspot corner where in the past we've seen where the water backs up, and you'll learn more about that how it needs to get out of the city past Brooklyn into Brook Park Road, where that chokes us off and floods this lake, floods our golf course parking lot, floods behind City Hall, all the way back to Lynette and Regency, where the hospital has been suffered thousands of dollars of damage. So this will help, one, get us more retention and more capacity. And I think that's the key for us moving forward on this. What the current Ridgewood Lake, it's over 80 years and it was not built to control flooding. We've had tremendous build out through the years within our city. So the goal is trying to get more capacity and retention to keep the water out of people's basements and moving within the storm system. So I appreciate the district's investment in our city, which would be over $3 million for this project. Additionally, if you drive through Veterans Memorial Park, you've seen that basin has been dried up as well. That's a temporary emergency move because there is a similar design project that will be moving forward once engineering and design gets work over there in the future. And that will help with flooding over in that area as well. It's another hotspot. So again, this has been briefly mentioned, if you've seen in a couple of news articles in 2020 when we had major storms, talking about the need for more retention. And this project has been briefly mentioned in city newsletters. And if you go on our website or if you attended the last couple of years, also mentioned in the city's annual water summit. So appreciate the district doing this. This will tremendously help us get more capacity and hopefully alleviate flooding of basements and surface water flooding. So thank you very much, district. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being able to join the call today. So just a little bit of housekeeping. There is a Q&A section of Zoom. It should be at the bottom of your screen. If you do have questions, we have district staff that will be monitoring that, and we will either answer them right away, or the district staff knows the presentation fairly well, and so they will propose those questions at an appropriate time for us to answer them in step with the presentation. Also on the line today, we have Brian Higgins, the service director, and then city engineer Hesh Patel and Jim Mihalich, and then also Councilwoman Kohar is joining us today too at this meeting. So thank you all for being on the call. Thank you residents for joining. And with that, we will get started. And 1 second, sorry. Okay, all right, so this is the agenda that we're going to go through today. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the sewer district. I'm sure most of you know a little bit about us already, but it'll just be a good level set as to who we are and what we do. Next, we'll go over why we're here tonight, what we're going to be talking about. And then we'll go through a little bit about your watershed. So what drains to Upper Ridgewood Lake and where it goes from there. Derek will be talking about the project goals. He'll be talking more about the design of the project and how it works. And then I will be gathering some feedback from you. We have a few poll questions that we'll go through, and we're looking forward to your input on that. And then we'll go through next steps, which will be the timeline. So when will construction start? How long will it take, etc. After that, if you want to stay on, I'm going to go through some of our cost savings programs. So there will be a handful of slides about ways that you can save on your bill. So first up, getting to know us, getting to know the sewer district. Here is our mission statement: provide progressive sewage and stormwater management through innovation, fiscal responsibility, and community partnerships. So the sewer district has sort of two sides of the house. We have sanitary side where we have 3 wastewater treatment plants: westerly, southerly, and easterly. We have large interceptor sewers, which we call the highways of the sewer system. So all the local sewers, so the smaller sewers that are in your street, the sanitary sewers, those relay sewage to our large interceptor sewers. Those interceptor sewers are owned and maintained by the sewer district, and they convey that waste to our wastewater treatment plants. We also have a stormwater management program, regional stormwater management program, and that's what we'll be talking about mostly tonight. The sewer district serves 61 communities, including Cleveland. And here is a map of our service area. In green, you'll see our sanitary service area, and the black outline shows the stormwater service area. So if you see Parma there, you guys are all in as far as the stormwater program's concerned. And if you're not on a septic system, your waste is also treated by the sewer district. So a little bit more about the Regional Stormwater Management Program. The program is funded through stormwater fees, and it's a tiered system. So there's 3 tiers. For residential properties, those tiers, for the highest tier, it's $9.27 a month. And the lowest tier is $3.09 a month. We do have credit programs to help lower that bill. But those tiers are based on your impervious area. So that includes your rooftops, your driveways, your garage, anything that water hits off of and then rolls, what we call hard surfaces or impervious surfaces. That is how we determine what tier to put you in. So the higher the impervious area, the higher the tier. So the Regional Stormwater Management Program, with those fees that we collect, 25% of those fees goes back to your community. So it goes to the city of Parma. Parma is very good at using their community cost share. They have lots and lots of projects that Jim and Hashbach and Brian all work on. And the other 75% go towards projects like this. So, there's about 476 miles of rivers, streams, and culverts that we help to maintain with those fees. We work on projects similar to this project. We do maintenance, such as removing large woody debris blockages so that areas don't flood. And we do a lot of planning. So you don't want to start projects without doing a lot of planning first. We try to use your money as best as possible, and that includes a lot of planning. Can you guys see the bar, or is that not, are you not able to see that? Because it looks like it's on the screen that you're seeing, just somebody from internal.
I do not see the bar.
Okay, good. It's just, it must just be a Zoom feature that I can see. Anyway, okay. So as we've gone through that introduction, I wanted to put together some projects that you may or may not remember us from. These are projects that we've done in the area that really showcase our stormwater program and the work that we do. This is on Baldwin Creek in Parma, Ohio. This is right by East Linden Lane, which is kind of close to Bonnie Banks Park or Storms Drive, that area. This was a stream restoration and a utility protection project that we did. You can see the plants really came in nicely. The sewer that we were protecting is on the right side of this photo, and it came out pretty well. This is Donebrook. This is part of Donebrook in Cleveland. It's right by the Art Museum. This was a stream restoration project. In Brooklyn, Ohio, we worked on Stickney Creek. This was a stream restoration and a utility relocation. There was a sewer that was leaking into the stream, and the stream was also infiltrating the sewer. So both the sewer and the stream were moved to be out of one another's way, and we added additional floodplain to create stormwater storage in this location. This is also in Parma. This is on Baldwin Creek. This is Bonnie Banks Basin. This basin was already in existence. And so the sewer district did not design this basin, but we did dredge the basin. There's a good deal of flooding over by Storms Drive. We're actually working on another project right now on Storms Drive that will help relieve some of that additional flooding. But Bonnie Banks was dredged by the sewer district to restore the capacity to this basin. And then lastly, for the projects that I want to show you today, this project is on Big Creek in Parma Heights. This is just a different section of Big Creek. This was a stream restoration and a utility protection program. There's a large sewer that runs underneath the stream. So this is the project during dry weather. And then this is the project during wet weather. So you can see that the stream really fills up with water when we have those events. So the district's very familiar with designing projects that help to handle flooding, flood mitigation and erosion and benefit water quality. So that is why we are here today to talk a little bit about this project as it relates to flooding. So why are we here? Your stormwater dollars at work, Upper Ridgewood Basin. So just to familiarize yourself, although if you're on this meeting, I'm sure you're very familiar, but here is just a Google map shot of Ridgewood Lake Park. You can see the City Hall is down in the southeast corner, and then you have Ridgewood Lakes Drive that kind of wraps around the side of the front of the basin, the north side of the basin. So we've gotten many calls over the years from residents that live on the northwest side of Upper Ridgewood Lake. Those calls have been about flooding. So when the basin receives a large storm event, lots of water comes through the watershed, goes to Upper Ridgewood Lake, and Upper Ridgewood Lake is unable to handle the amount of stormwater that it sees. So you can see in this photo, the basin has overtopped. It kind of just looks like a parking lot, but it's all water. I'm sure you guys are familiar. And you can see that the water is in the road there. Here's a photo of Kearneywood and Ridgewood Lakes Drive with a car driving through it. This type of flooding is unsafe to vehicles, to people, and it also creates infrastructure issues as far as the sewer system is concerned, and it can cause flooding. So here's another photo. This is during a storm event, and you can see shortly after the basin has overtopped and is again flooding the street. So what I wanted to talk about next is, what are we not building? When I've gotten calls from residents, which I've gotten quite a few calls, I mostly hear that you guys are worried about what we are going to build, especially as it pertains to basins. So there can be lots of different designs of basins. So I want to go through a few of those designs and to show you what we're not building so that then you can focus and really start to learn about what we will be building. So we're not building this concrete line channel within a dry basin. Concrete line channels are sort of a design of the past. And so this is one of the examples of what we will not be building. Here's a typical wet basin that you might see in a subdivision or maybe at a shopping center. We will also not be building this sort of typical wet basin. This is Chevy Boulevard Stormwater Detention Basin. This is a basin that the sewer district did build, and it services a whole neighborhood and helps to reduce flooding there. But this is also not the style of basin that we will be putting in at Upper Ridgewood. And then lastly, what I've gotten the most calls about, as the mayor stated, is State Road Lake Basin, also known as Veterans Lake Basin. As the mayor said, this was emptied as an emergency flood relief measure. When this basin fills up, when it was still full, it would overtop and it would flow into people's backyards and into neighborhoods, which is really unsafe. And so the city of Parma, during a particularly wet season, drained this basin so that it would create some relief. So this is not a basin that was designed for flood mitigation. This basin, similar to Upper Ridgewood Lake and Lower Ridgewood Lake, are aesthetic basins, which we hope to convert into basins that will provide flood mitigation and aesthetic benefit. So getting to know your watershed. Why is this important? It's important to know your watershed so that you understand why we had to design this basin the way that we did and what we were looking at from a scientific standpoint in order to design this basin to be the most beneficial to the residents in the area. So here's a photo from 1951. You can see circled there or squared in blue, Upper Ridgewood Lake. You can also kind of see Lower Ridgewood Lake there. This photo shows you that the golf course was already there, but not all the houses were built, and most of the development was not done to the south of the basin. This basin is man-made, human-made. It, prior to becoming a basin, was a stream. So it was created by putting in that outlet structure, sort of damming this water back so that it created this lake. But this lake is not a natural feature of Big Creek. If you keep your eye on the lower half of this screen, you will see that area change quite a bit. So here's 1979. You can see the shopping area is all built out now. The subdevelopment in the southeast corner is also all built out, and all the homes around Upper Ridgewood and Lower Ridgewood Lake are filled in. So development hit Parma very quickly, and there was very little stormwater management that was done in this area. So instead of water, when it rained, hitting the ground and soaking into the ground or into, where the trees were, the forest, it now hits this impervious surface, goes through the sewers and dumps directly into culverted streams that lead to Upper Ridgewood Lake. So where does the water go? So this is the upstream area, is what we would call it. So Upper Ridgewood, you can see is that circle, the little circle, and I have a call out box saying Upper Ridgewood. And then that whole area that you guys see in orange, that whole area drains to Upper Ridgewood Lake. So whenever it rains, if it falls in the area where that orange is, where the shaded white is, it will eventually make its way to Upper Ridgewood Lake. All the white lines that you see, those are tributaries that have not yet been, and hopefully will not be, put underground. So typically those tributaries would have led, towards that branch of Big Creek, but where it hits the developments, it's been put underground and it's been put into storm sewers. So much of this area has been developed, and so the water comes much more quickly to Upper Ridgewood Lake than it would have pre-development times. So downstream of Upper Ridgewood Lake You have, again, in that southeast corner, that orange outlined area that I just talked about, all of that goes to Upper Ridgewood, as we just said. It then goes to Lower Ridgewood Lake, and then it goes underground in a culverted stream for about 4,600 feet. It flows underground in this very large culvert, which is kind of like a giant pipe underground. And then it goes to Twin Lakes. And then from Twin Lakes, it goes out to a not underground portion of stream. So not only do you have all of that water from that orange area, but then during rain events, you have lots of water from the side streets that many of you most likely live on that drains off the rooftops, drains off the streets, goes into the storm sewers, and then drains directly into this culverted area. So we know from studies that that culvert is too small. It's not big enough. There's not enough capacity. And we also know that there's not enough storage in Big Creek to mitigate that flooding right now. And how do we know that? We know that through our master plans. As I stated before, planning is very, very important. We don't want to spend money without knowing what we're doing first. And so we've taken on several very large stormwater master plans. Big Creek falls within the Cuyahoga River North Stormwater Master Plan, and that's all of the colors that you see on this map. So all of those different watersheds are represented by different colors. And they all drain to the Cuyahoga. There's also a Cuyahoga River South watershed that drains up into this Cuyahoga River North area. So within that Cuyahoga River North Stormwater Master Plan, there were 70 problem areas that were identified for flooding, erosion, water quality. And within that, there's about $544 million in construction costs. So this area that we're talking about today, Upper Ridgewood Basin area, is included in problem area 7. Problem area 7, it goes from about Stearns Farm area to just north of Twin Lakes. Within that problem area, there's about 20 project components. So it doesn't work the way you might think it works, where you have one problem, you have one solution. That would make our lives much easier, but no. In this area, problem area 7, there's about 20 plus project components, because these are very, very complicated problems. And they have, there's not just one silver bullet for them. You have to do many, many things in order to mitigate the issues. So those 20 plus project components cost about $36 million, and Upper Ridgewood Redesign is just one part of those components. So it's one of those project components. So I will hand it off to Derek now to talk about that project of redesigning Upper Ridgewood Basin. Derek?
Thank you very much, Donna. As Donna mentioned, my name is Derek Vogel. I'm a project manager for the sewer district, and I am the project manager representative for this project. So Donna asked me to explain a couple of project goals that we want to talk about today. The first one being reducing flooding and increasing safety. So we plan to increase the safety of the area by reducing flooding once this project is done. We also, and I guess the second goal would be to enhance ecosystem benefits and reduce maintenance costs through a forward-thinking design. Our goal is to have a community space with flood mitigation in mind. So the first goal is to increase safety by reducing flooding. And let's dive into how that works. So the current conditions at Upper Ridgewood Lake are that the lake was built for aesthetic purposes approximately 100 years ago. The existing design is not meant for flood reduction, and there's actually a negative impact on water quality in the existing condition. So some of those issues, as we dig even further down into the existing condition, is that the outlet structure for the basin or for the lake right now is not designed for stormwater management. Another issue is that excessive sediment has filled in the basin, which has resulted in an average depth of water of about 1 to 2 feet. So that sediment that's accumulated has taken away from some of the storage capacity of the basin, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then there's also low flood control berms, what we call flood control berms, on the northwest side of the basin. So during a wet weather event of a certain size, there can be uncontrolled flooding that goes over those low berms and then into the neighborhoods to the north of West Ridgewood Lakes Drive there. So one of the big topics of basin design is active storage. So what is active storage, and why can't we just remove the sediment and keep the lake in order to increase storage in the basin, is because in this graphic, you can see, you picture a bowl and you fill in that bowl with a fair amount of dirt. Let's say you fill it up halfway. That can represent the sediment within the basin. And then if you put a little bit more water in there, then there's that existing water in the basin. That's what we call passive storage. So a passive volume of water that is always there, that doesn't end up draining out of the basin. That's the current condition of Upper Ridgewood Lake right now. So when a storm comes through, which will be shown in this animation, picture dumping more water inside of that bowl. And as the bowl fills up, it gets to a certain point where it starts to overflow and come out of the basin. So if there is a small hole near the top of that bowl and the water starts to drain down, that's what we consider active storage. So it's the amount of water, the volume of water that will stay in the basin during that storm event. If you were to only remove that sediment from that bowl and fill it back up to the water, wherever that hole is on the side of the bowl, you'd still have that same volume underneath where that hole is. So if another rain event came through and filled up the basin up to the hole again, you still have the same amount of storage volume in there. So we plan to do a little bit more in order to increase the storage of the basin. We want to remove the sediment and dig the basin footprint deeper. The new basin will be approximately 8 to 10 feet deep from the top of the flood control berm all the way to the bottom of the basin. Less water will occupy the total storage area. There will be just a little bit of water at the bottom of the basin in order to keep base flow flowing through. And we plan to adjust the basin inlets and outlets to maximize storage. So if you can picture the holes on the inlet and then the hole on the outlet side of that bowl, that's what we're trying to adjust. So this is a representation of what we're shooting for. So if you can imagine, we've removed the sediment from the bowl, we've deepened the container, and now that stream in the basin is just a little bit of that water that will only stay there all the time. So then when a wet weather event comes through or when a storm comes into the basin, you can see that the volume of active storage has increased. And in this case, we're almost doubling the amount of active storage from the existing condition to what we plan to install. So here's another graphic, another way to kind of think about it. If you were to cut the basin in half, or like cutting a sandwich, and then you look at the sandwich from the side, this is just a cross section, is what we refer to it as, of the basin. So in the top is the existing basin, and in the bottom is the proposed basin. So in the top, you can see there's existing sediment that takes up some of that volume. Again, there's the passive storage, which is that permanent pool that stays in the current Upper Ridgewood Basin. And then when a storm event comes through, you can see that the active storage fills up just a little bit. So that little bit of volume isn't really helping us much by reducing the amount of flooding downstream. So in the existing condition, when we take that sediment out, deepen the basin again, and a wet weather event comes through, you can see that that active storage is much larger, and we're holding back a lot more water that won't make its way into the neighborhoods to the north. So here's kind of the big reveal. This is rendering that our designer put together of what we picture the proposed basin to look like. Again, we plan to remove that sediment, deepen the basin. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but the basin will be 8 to 10 feet deep rather than right around 5 or 6 feet deep as it is today. The stream will flow through the basin, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second goal. But the flows will be controlled when the basin overtops. So we plan to increase the height of those flood control berms to the north and to the west there in order to better control how flow gets out and over the basin and then down towards Lower Ridgewood Lake. And then the inlets and the outlets will be upgraded. So as we saw in those graphics earlier, we'll adjust the elevation of those inlets and outlets to maximize the storage, make conveyance as best as we can, and then also make the maintenance activities much easier for our maintenance staff. So we wanted to show you a little bit of the engineering plans, and I apologize that this plan sheet is a little busy, but if you can picture Upper Ridgewood Lake from above, this is one of the plan sheets from the final design. And the way that we tried to design the low flow channel, I guess is what you could call it through here, is that there's 3 inlets. One inlet is coming from the east underneath Ridge Road. It comes from the golf course to the east. There's an inlet that picks up flow from the catch basins along Roycroft Drive. That's just to the southeast. And then there is a southern inlet that comes from underneath West Ridgewood that extends to beyond where the old Parmatown Mall was. So the idea is that we're creating 4 bays in front of each one of these inlets. And a 4 bay is pretty much just a small depressed area that will fill in as like a small pool, and it'll collect debris and trash over time, and it'll keep it in the area closer to the inlet. That'll allow us to maintain the basin much easier by only having to remove sediment from those smaller locations just near where those inlets are. We also plan to connect those 4 bays with micro pools and riffles, and those are just structures that allow low flow of the stream to come around the basin in a very controlled fashion and then make its way out of the outlet structure. So I think we have an animation here that shows the path of the flow that we expect to go from the inlets around that little peninsula that we plan to put in there in order to increase the flow path and then out of that outlet structure there. The other thing I wanted to mention about this design is that the perimeter of the current basin is surrounded mostly by concrete steps. And we plan to remove those steps and create sloped sides, mostly because we need to deepen the basin. We need to increase that storage there, and we plan to then plant native plantings on that sloped basin side and the basin perimeter there. So one big question is, will the basin still overtop? And as Donna had mentioned earlier, the Upper Ridgewood Basin, as you can see in that yellow circle there, is pretty small in comparison to the drainage area that's upstream of the basin. And so we are definitely increasing the amount of storage through this project at Upper Ridgewood, but unfortunately during larger storm events, the basin will still be overtopped. It'll be overtopped in a much more controlled fashion, but it will still happen for some of those like 50-year, 100-year, 25-year storms, if you're familiar with those terminologies. So the second goal is to design with the future in mind. So we plan to enhance the ecosystem that's on site and then also enhance the maintenance activities that we plan to take on as part of this project. The new basin features will include step pools that will allow the stream to flow through, as we had discussed before. Those step pools help with settling out sediment that's in the water, helps with maintenance activities, and it also enhances the water quality as the water leaves the basin. We also plan to do a lot of native species plantings, so lots of trees, taller grasses, other types of species that will fortify those banks and will create great habitat for native species. We also will make sure that the design is maintainable. So sediment will be managed into perpetuity, and the inlet and the outlet structures can be cleaned much easier with this maintainable design. Okay, so what do we expect the basin to look like? The photo on the left is from one of our green infrastructure sites. As you can see, there's a lot of native grass plantings around the basin. There's a little bit of a wetland forming in the bottom there, and it looks beautiful in the springtime. The photo on the right is of the towpath trail. It's a stabilization project that we also completed as part of the sewer district. And you can see that there's native riparian or stream plantings on the right side of the photo. And then there's the towpath on the left. And there's a bit of a turf buffer in between the path and the plantings, which we'll touch on a little bit later. And this last slide was just some examples of species that we plan to incorporate into this project. We want to make sure we're putting back as many trees as we're taking down, such as oaks or maples or red osier dogwoods. The red osier dogwoods are more bushy and a little bit shorter, but they're great native species that provide great habitat. So we've got a whole palette of plantings that we plan to incorporate into the project. And these are just a few examples.
Thanks, Derek. Kim and Keith, are there any questions in the question box?
There was one earlier. It was in regards to when will the lake be drained and cleaned? And I think we're going to cover the schedule here coming up. And then asking about whether it will be stocked with fish in the future, which I do not believe will be the case, since it will no longer have an active pool area, just a smaller micro pools. That is the only question though.
Okay. I do see a question here that says, what percentage of storms is the predicted to help? It doesn't seem like it will be that much help in a large storm event. I feel like it will fill in quickly and begin overflowing much more often than the 50 or 100-year event. Derek, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We are going from what we consider a 1 year to a 5-year level of service. So in a 1-year event, which is a storm event that happens on average once a year, that's about the current design or current capacity of Upper Ridgewood Basin. And after the project is complete, we're hoping to get to a 5-year before flooding or before there's any activation of this emergency spillway that we will put in. So that's our plan for the project. And to answer that second part, we have designed the low flow channel to pass sediment through the system. So it won't fill up as fast as it has been. And even sediment that does drop out in the forebays, we will be able to maintain on a yearly or every few years basis. And we'll make sure that sediment doesn't fill up those forebays. But even if it did, it will still be a larger volume increasing.
Thanks, Derek. Okay. The next question is from Sue, and Sue, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Sue asked, do you envision park benches and places for people to gather? We have talked to the city, answer live. Sorry. We have talked to the city about park benches. We will be moving a couple benches in order to do the project, but those benches will be put back. As far as places for people to gather, neither of the pavilions will be touched by the project, and the gazebo will also stay in place. So all of those locations that you guys currently have to have parties or meet with your neighbors, those will still be there in the future. Next question. How will this affect Lower Ridgewood? I'm a resident. Will it have an effect on sediment into Lower Ridgewood? I will take that, and then Derek, if you have anything to add, please jump in. So this will have a positive benefit on Lower Ridgewood. Right now, because Upper Ridgewood is so full of sediment, packed in with sediment, once we remove all of that sediment, it will, and we build in those 4 bays like Derek was talking about, the district will be able to maintain to a much higher degree the removal of that sediment when it starts to accumulate in Upper Ridgewood Basin. So from a sediment standpoint, we are going to be careful about the work that we do, that it doesn't move additional sediment to Lower Ridgewood Lake. We know that Lower Ridgewood Lake also has quite a bit of sediment in it. And then Derek, do you want to talk about flows from Upper Ridgewood to Lower Ridgewood?
Yeah, so the way in which we looked at design here was that Lower Ridgewood kind of controls the elevation of water that we need to rely on for Upper Ridgewood. And so we took that into account when coming up with that final design to make sure that sediment would be trapped in those 4 bays and that we wouldn't be moving any issues downstream. And in fact, as part of this project, we're actually going to increase the level of service of Lower Ridgewood Basin as well, just slightly, but there will be a little bit of a flood storage increase in Lower as well.
Thanks, Derek. And I think Bobcat also had a very similar question. So hopefully, Bobcat, you feel like we answered that question for you. Okay. Last time the city worked on Upper Ridgewood, a lot of sediment was moved into Lower Ridgewood. Are there any plans for Lower? So as we just mentioned, we do have plans to remove that sediment. We are going to be monitoring the sediment to make sure it's not moving into Lower as best we can. And are there any plans for Lower? Lower Ridgewood Lake is included in our large Cuyahoga River North Stormwater Master Plan. However, the benefits to working on Upper Ridgewood Lake at this time are much higher, and there are other projects in the same problem area that I talked about that have a higher benefit to the system. And so at this time, we do not have anything in the construction budget for Lower Ridgewood Lake.
We had another question in there about wildlife and what will be done during construction. Are there any relocation efforts?
Yeah, I see that one, Keith. That question from Brenda. Thank you for submitting that question. I don't recall if we've had conversations about fish in Upper Ridgewood Lake. But that's definitely something that we will look at. We know that fish populations are oftentimes in lakes like this. Sometimes they're non-native species. And relocating fish can be very, very difficult. I will say that up front, because the ODNR does not like to relocate fish. They don't like to have us relocate fish because it can spread diseases that fish carry from one watershed to another. And so those are conversations that we would have once we start getting into permitting. And I'll talk a little bit about permitting, but we plan on working on the permitting towards the end of this year.
And maybe just to add to that a little bit is that as part of design, we've done bat surveys to make sure that there's no endangered species in the trees that are around the base. And we've done a freshwater mussel survey to make sure that there's no freshwater mussels that have set up habitat here. And during construction, like Donna said, we will be working to relocate any species that we need to.
Yes, and we also did that bat survey as well to make sure there were no endangered bats in the area. Okay, it looks like you were doing away with the chain link barbed wire fence at the spillway at the north end. Is that right? Derek, can you speak to that?
That is correct, yeah. So the new outlet structure that we plan to install is almost going to be an extension of the culvert that is in between Upper Ridgewood and Lower Ridgewood. And it's going to have a wing wall, head wall system similar to what you'd see in other basins or other culverts that pass under roadways. So it's going to be a much simpler design, and it's going to be much further down into the basin, surrounded by plantings. So it will be there, and there won't be any fencing around it, at least not similar to what's there now.
Yeah, and it's not going to be, so at the current outlet, there's sort of like the outlet and then there's like an opening, and that's why they have that fencing around it. We're not going to have that opening, correct, Eric?
That's correct. Yeah, and there's a pond drain in there that may not be functional anymore, and there were a few other things that made that area a little bit more dangerous, which I think is why the fence was there in the first place.
Great. Okay. Next question I'll take from Councilwoman Kohar. She asked, will there be any rocks or boulders to make it more pleasing? We do have some boulders currently in the design, and we will take that input and talk to our designer about it. There are some currently in the design, but we will go back over that with them. Okay. Steve has another question here. Was the dam at the outlet of Lower Ridgewood surveyed? What kind of condition is it in? And what would happen if it were to collapse? Steve, I know that the dam was, or the outlet pipe was surveyed at Lower Ridgewood, and the sewer district is part of our stormwater inspection and maintenance program. We do inspection reports on all of the stormwater system. And so I definitely have a inspection report for Lower Ridgewood Lake that I can get to you. So if you see on the flyers that you all got, or even on the Upper Ridgewood website, my email is on there. And so if you want to email me, Steve, I'm happy to talk more about the condition of Lower Ridgewood and get you those inspection reports. Those are public record, and we're happy to send them over to you. Okay, and then Steve has one other question here. Will the culvert draining Lower Ridgewood be part of the upcoming project or any upcoming project? So the culvert that connects Upper Ridgewood and Lower Ridgewood is not currently part of this project. I think it is also included in that larger stormwater master plan, but like I stated previously, we will likely be working on other projects within this watershed prior to working on Lower Ridgewood, based on the benefits that we would be able to capture as far as flooding mitigation. And we can talk about that more too, Steve. You're welcome to call me or email me. Oh, he said he meant the culvert from Lower to Twin. I'll have to look at that and get back to you. Does anyone from district staff remember if that culvert is part of the master plan? I'm sure it is.
Yeah, that's correct, Donna. Oh, go ahead, Derek. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It is included in that problem area, and we do plan to share some of that information when it's closer to design.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Jack Barron, very reasonable question. When will this project start? We are hoping that the project will start in the spring of 2022, and we have more on like a couple slides from now about project timeline. Councilwoman Kohar asked, did we say that Lower Ridgewood Lake would be made to have more capacity dredged? We are not going to be dredging or working on Lower Ridgewood Lake as part of this project.
Yeah, Councilwoman, if you can picture, Lower Ridgewood has a kind of a higher water level in it now. And once Upper Ridgewood Basin is done, it'll bring the water level down for Lower as well, because we're trying to bring that down as far as we can. And that's the little bit of flood storage increase that we'll get from Lower as part of this project.
And then Sue asked, do you think people will be able to walk down around the lake like pathways? Sue, what a great way to transition to the next slide. Thank you for that. All right, here we go. Maybe. Okay, community input. So this is a little bit touching on Sue's question about the trail. We wanted to get your input tonight on a couple of aspects of the project. So there will be poll questions that you can answer, and Mike, our friendly CCR staffer, is going to help us launch those poll questions. So the polling will be related to the signage around the lake, a trail along the west side of the lake, and then the empty parcel that's between Upper Ridgewood and Lower Ridgewood. So the first question is about educational signage and whether or not the residents on the call today would like a theme to those signs. So in this photo that you see to the right, you can see that we have an educational sign at our Stickney Creek project. It's about the watershed and it's about the project. We thought it might be nice to include other options for those educational signs because this is a public park. So other options include native birds and habitat focus, wetland vegetation and tree ID, watershed development, and stormwater basin focus. So at this time, if you'd like to submit your answer via the poll, hopefully it's showing up for everyone, and we will gather that input. And Mike, you might have to walk me through this because I'm not seeing it much on my screen.
Sure, no problem. We're collecting answers right now, and I'll let you know when we are close to done here.
Okay, great. So these signs will be worked on by the sewer district, but also by West Creek Conservancy and Big Creek Connects. Those are your two main watershed groups in this portion of Parma. So we'll work with them to make sure that they have input and they have their say on those signs as well.
Okay, we have 12 responses, and it's pretty evenly split between
Ooh,
watershed development, native birds, and wetland vegetation.
okay, all right. Well, thank you for giving your input. We will take that into consideration, and maybe others will reach out to me as we move towards the start of this project.
Hey, Donna, there is a question of can there be more than one sign? And I think based on the poll answers, we can consider that. Yes.
Yes, that sounds good. Yes.
All right, next question.
Next question. Okay, so this is the next question. This is the parcel. Sorry, this photo is not ideal, but this is the parcel between Upper Ridgewood and Lower Ridgewood Lake. It's a parcel that is owned by the city of Parma, but the sewer district will be helping to, we'll also have an easement because you see that large brown thing that comes across. That's where the culvert is, the underground stream that ties Upper Ridgewood to Lower Ridgewood. So you really can't plant on top of that because it's infrastructure. So if roots were to get into it, that would be bad. However, the area that you see to the left and the right of that brown structure can be planted. And so our question to you is, would you like trees to be planted in that area, or would you only like trees to be planted around the perimeter of that area, like, on the tree lawn? We are open to either option, but I have been told that some people like to play baseball in that space. So we didn't want to plant trees if people were going to be running into them. So if you want to vote on that poll question next, that would be great. And also I should mention, we will be staging our equipment in this area during the project. And so I think there are a couple saplings that are over there now, which is another reason we're asking this question, because we will have to relocate or remove those small trees that have been planted. So we would like to put them back somewhere, if not here, or replace them at least.
All right, out of the 12 responses. Oh, wait, we have more responses. Never mind.
Linda, Councilwoman Kohar asked if there could be benches to sit on in this area. That's definitely something that we can talk to the city about and see what they think. Also, if folks know of community groups that are interested or are willing to work on this kind of these kind of auxiliary parts of the project, I'm more than happy to connect with them and talk with them about it. So yeah, I will, Councilwoman, I'll definitely talk to Parma about benches in this area and with the watershed groups too.
Donna, we have 14 responses. 4 would like to see trees in the open spaces. 6 would like to see trees only on the perimeter, and 4 have no preference.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. All right, and then the last poll question that we have today, because folks, at least some folks walk around the edge where these, where the stairs are currently on the basin, we were talking about the idea of putting in a trail from Ridgewood Lakes Drive to the splash pad. So Sue's question about putting in a trail, this is what we were thinking about. And we wanted to get your input to see if that's something that you, the community, would like and would use, or if you wanted it to be left more naturalized. So please submit your input now.
One thing I'd like to add on that is that we did show a photo of the towpath trail and the project that we had through there. We're planning to have something similar installed where there would be a path on the side, probably not crushed limestone, probably asphalt pavement, but then a small buffer strip of turf grass, and then the native plantings of the basin would be next to that buffer strip. So that'd be kind of what it looks like.
Thanks, Derek.
13 people have answered, 12 want there to be a trail, and 1 has no preference.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Out of the 14 responses,
Mhm.
13 want there to be a trail,
Okay.
and 1 person has no preference.
Okay, cool, great. Thanks for running those, Mike. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for submitting your answers. We have a couple more questions to go through before I start to wrap up. So keep in mind, this is from Jack Barron. Keep in mind, more trees will mean more leaves getting into the basin. That is a good point, and we will keep that in mind. Will the flow from upper to lower Ridgewood Basin remain the same? I'm concerned that if there's no flow into lower, it could become stagnant and smelly. And if the water level drops, it will expose the debris that already exists in lower. Derek, do you want to take a swing at that?
Yeah, so Steve, another great question. The flow rate and the flow amounts will not change into lower Ridgewood. The same watershed area upstream will always be providing that same flow rate that'll then pass through upper Ridgewood and it'll get to lower. The slight decrease in water elevation may expose some of the banks of lower Ridgewood, and we'll have to look into that to see if it makes a big impact on lower. But yeah, I don't foresee a large impact or anything becoming stagnant because flow will always be moving through there.
Thanks, Derek. Alrighty. You guys are welcome to keep submitting questions and we'll keep answering them, but I will move forward to next steps. So timeline, construction, and what to expect when you have a stormwater project in your area. So the timeline, I think I mentioned this already. We're thinking the end of 2021, early 2022, the district will wrap up the design on this project. We are around 90% right now, and we will finish permitting. Construction, we're hoping will start in spring of 2022. Here are a nice little list of all the things that construction entails. It is definitely not fully inclusive, but hopefully it gives you an idea of all the work that has to be done in order to do this project. And then early 2023 is when we expect the project to be completed. So that includes plantings. You have to plant things at specific seasons during specific times. And so that's why that date feels a little bit, maybe a little bit pushed out. So we expect that a lot of the major earthwork will happen within the first few months of the project. And so those are the dates that we have for you today. And we will send out another letter prior to construction beginning with hopefully a more specific timeline for you all who live around the basin and the lake. Okay, so what to expect? The rest of the park will remain open. So the gazebo, the pavilions, the splash pad, all of those will remain open during the construction of this project. We will not be working on Sundays. Sediment removal. So this lake was dredged once previously, but I think it was about 30 years ago. So there is quite a bit of sediment, as we've noted. And sediment removal can smell. So there's a lot of debris that gets into the lake. As John Barron said, leaves. So leaves will start to break down. And so removing that sediment, dewatering the lake and removing that sediment can be a little bit of a smelly process. We'll be honest with you. So we will try to get that done quickly so that it isn't too much of a hassle on you. As the residents. The other note is that construction can be loud during the day. We realize folks work from home, and so please let us know. Give us a call if you feel like the noise is getting excessive. You all have my number or my email, so feel free to reach out. I will go back to the question bar at this time.
Then I can answer that first one there from Stephen. Actually, yeah, I probably was unclear about that. In the low flow or like in just like the base flow condition, the level of the water won't change because you're right. The outlet for lower Ridgewood will stay the same elevation. But during storm events, because we're lowering that water level at upper Ridgewood, we're actually going to be able to store more water both at lower and upper Ridgewood. So sorry, that was just for storm events, not necessarily for the low flow, like regular flow conditions.
One more question, Derek, about that. Bobcat says, still worried if water level drops in Lower Lake, it will be a problem. There's only 1 or 2 feet of water left now because of the sediment that's accumulated.
Yeah, again, sorry, Bobcat. I misspoke there on the water level dropping in the low flow conditions. So the elevation of that, of the pond right now, when there isn't any storm event going on or any wet weather flow going through there, shouldn't change. It's only during a storm event where we'll be able to hold back a little bit more of that water.
Great, hopefully that was clear. And then Councilwoman Kohar asked, will evergreen trees be included? I don't know at this time if we have evergreen trees included. We can look at that. I do know that some evergreens, once they get pretty tall, they tend to blow over. And in these large storm events that we've been getting, I don't think we want that. But I will look at our design plan and see if there are any evergreens included. And then Joseph asked, do you have a contractor selected? We do not have a contractor selected. We have not gone out to bid yet for this job, so we have not offered the job up for contractors to bid on it. But likely when we send out the letter updating you all about the construction timeline, we can also include the contractor, especially if you live around the lake. We will be doing that. Also, just as a side note, we will be updating the website that you reached the Zoom link on today. So that Upper Ridgewood Sewer District website, we will update that. And I don't think it'll be an issue to put the contractor on there as well as the start date when we get that information. Derek, do you know when we plan to go to bid for this project?
Right now, we plan to have final design done by the middle of December. And then our bidding process is about 3 months. So we're shooting for early spring to get that notice to proceed for the contractor.
Great. Okay. Alrighty. With that, that is our last project slide. I know it has been like quite some time we've been on this call, but if you hang on with me just a little bit longer, I do have some cost saving slides just about how you can save on your bill. If you don't want to hear about that, that's okay. And we've covered all of the project related items today. So if you are jumping off, thank you so much for joining us. You're always welcome to call or email me. But if you're not jumping off, then I will go over some of those cost saving programs now. So the sewer district has several cost savings programs. Here are the 6 that we have listed. The homestead program is a 40% rate reduction on your sanitary sewer bill and your stormwater bill. It's for customers 65 years and older. Let me just check this question. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome, Steve. It's for customers 65 years and older, or customers who are permanently disabled who are under 65. And eligibility is based on income. It's $34,500 or lower. Our affordability program is more targeted at those who fall within certain poverty level. So it is also a 40% rate reduction, and the household income limits for 2021 are 200% of the federal poverty level, but starting in 2022, it's 250% of the federal poverty level. So if you previously, if you're under 65 and you previously went to apply because you thought you were really close and you ended up falling just shy of being within that 200%, this bump to 250 might qualify you. So it's really important that if you think you might be close, please call in. The number is at the bottom here in the bottom right to see if you would now qualify for this savings. Crisis Assistance Program. This program covers unforeseen life events that impact the ability of you to pay your sewer bill. So that could be a divorce, it could be an injury, it could be a death in the family, losing your job. And this is a one-time credit up to $300 off of your bill. And if you call into the same number that's down there below, they can help you get set up with that. Plumbing Assistance Program, there are income guidelines. This is a program where they can cover emergency service line replacements and other plumbing repairs. You do have to be a homeowner for this program, and it is residents in the service area only, but all of you would qualify if you're in the service area, which I'm guessing if you're on this call, you would be. Summer sprinkling, this is a program for everyone. You do have to own your home. However, there's no income limit. And it's a program for, especially for people who fill their swimming pools or who water their lawns religiously. You should definitely sign up for this program. It bases your summer usage, your summer water usage off of your winter consumption. So you're not going to be charged on your sewer bill for watering your lawn as often as maybe you do. So we can talk about that more further, and there's more details on our website about the summer sprinkling program. It's very easy to sign up for. And with that, we can take any additional questions. Here's my information. You're welcome to email me or call me. And if it's a project very engineering question, I can always send that over to Derek as well. So feel free to reach out. And other than that, I think that's all we have for you today. Keith, are there any additional questions?
Donna, we did have one question is, what is the TIC for the Upper Ridgewood Lake project? A rough ballpark. I'm not sure what TIC is. Maybe it's time in construction.
I am not sure either.
If that's construction duration, yeah, we're looking at from early spring of next year until probably close to the end of next year. That kind of depends on what you mean by construction? There's definitely a lot of earthwork that'll happen in the first few months. There will be a lot of plantings and more plantings that'll happen in the season following all the earthwork. So yeah, we still kind of consider that right before substantial completion.
Derek, he actually responded, Joseph actually responded again and said he's looking for the total install cost. So what is our current estimate for the project?
Oh, sorry about that, Joseph. Yeah, so the estimate right now is 3.2 million for everything.
All right, any other questions? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today, for being able to be on the call. If you have neighbors or friends that wanted to attend but couldn't, we are recording the presentation and it will be on that website, NEORSD.org/Upper Ridgewood, for them to watch it at their leisure, or if you want to watch it all over again, you're welcome to do that too. If you have any questions that we weren't able to get to today or that come to you later, feel free to email or call. And otherwise, I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.